This presentation on America's Water Infrastructure Act is part of a series of technical webinars provided by Comprehensive Environmental, also known as CEI. Please visit CEI's website at ceiengineers.com for a list of other webinar topics. Hi, my name is David Roman. I am a senior engineer at CEI and specialize in climate adaptation and resiliency. I am also certified through the Utility, Risk, and Resiliency Certificate Program to help facilitate compliance with the AWIA. The goal of this presentation is to provide a high-level understanding of the AWIA, including ideas on potential approaches to complete the required risk and resiliency assessment and emergency response plan. So, what is the AWIA? America's Water Infrastructure Act replaces the Safe Drinking Water Act, where water suppliers were previously required to perform vulnerability assessments following the 9/11 attacks. The AWIA includes similar requirements to the vulnerability assessments, but includes additional items such as consideration of natural hazards and cybersecurity attacks. The AWIA applies to all water systems serving more than 3,300 people. The primary requirements of the AWIA are to conduct a risk and resilience assessment and emergency response plan by the specified deadlines. EPA does not require a copy of the completed RRA or ERP. Instead, they require an electronic certification that these items have been completed by the required deadlines. For reference, this table includes required deadlines based on population served. For example, a small water supplier's risk and resilience assessment is due on June 30th, 2021. Emergency response plans must be completed and certified no later than 6 months after completion of the RRA. The AWIA does not require the use of any standards or tools to comply with its requirements. As a result, there are many potential approaches that can be used to meet AWIA requirements. In this webinar, I will go over 3 possible approaches based on increasing complexity. The simplest approach to develop an RRA is to use EPA's Small System Risk and Resilience Assessment Checklist. The checklist was developed for small water systems to help meet AWIA requirements. The checklist is structured based on major asset categories such as source water, pre-treatment and treatment, storage and distribution, computer systems, chemical handling, and others. A user will identify specific assets which in each category that are at significant risk from potential malevolent acts or natural hazards. Then they will indicate potential consequences. For example, a pump station located in the floodplain would be at risk from natural flooding hazards. This checklist does not require evaluation of solutions or countermeasures, but does have space to enter them in. A more complicated method to develop an RRA is to use EPA's Vulnerability Self-Assessment Tool, also known as VSAT. This web-based tool provides a rigorous step-by-step analysis using click-through menus. Specific sections of the tool include a utility overview, qualitative and quantitative risk assessments, and a countermeasure analysis. VSAT has some nice features, such as providing automatic tools to calculate risk likelihood to certain threats. For example, the chance of a severe tornado hitting town. The tool's primary drawback is its overall complexity. It requires detailed information that may not be readily available for each evaluated asset, such as potential replacement cost, population served, potential duration of outage caused by specific threats, number of possible injuries, and other factors. This tool might be too complicated for some smaller water supply systems with limited assets and resources. The final approach that I'll talk about today is a hybrid approach of moderate complexity that CEI has developed. This approach can be customized and adapted as needed to meet specific water supplier needs. The overall goal of this approach is to provide a step-by-step analysis to enable identification of critical assets, a qualitative risk characterization, and evaluation and prioritization of possible solutions and recommendations to reduce overall risk. The end result of this analysis is an easy-to-follow, ranked and prioritized list of critical assets and potential solutions for future implementation that can be used for long-term planning purposes. All three of these approaches are acceptable per AWIA requirements. It is up to the water supplier to determine which approach makes the most sense. The approach can be selected by asking a series of questions based on overall goals, needs, and available resources, among other factors. The first question to ask is related to overall goals. Is the goal to check the box to meet AWIA requirements or to do a more detailed evaluation? For example, if the utility has already performed a similar assessment and has great existing information on assets, potential risks, and potential solutions to increase resiliency, there might not be a need for a more complicated analysis, and the EPA checklist might work perfectly well. Finally, if the utility has limited staff availability, it might make the most sense to perform a simple evaluation using EPA's checklist or hire an outside consultant, particularly if there is a need to perform a more complicated analysis. The most important thing to note, a more complete plan will likely result in better preparation for potential future incidents. Once the RRA is complete, an ERP is required to be completed within 6 months. Similar to the RRA, there are no required standards or tools that must be used to comply with AWIA requirements. There are, however, a couple of different options that can be used to prepare the required ERP. Two approaches that I will talk about today are to use the EPA template or to simply update an existing ERP. EPA developed an ERP template for small, medium, and large water systems to help facilitate compliance with the AWIA. The template is easy to use and includes some useful items for potentially unfamiliar topics. For example, it includes incident response procedures for cyber attacks, harmful algal blooms, and many other potential items. It should also be noted that this template does not supersede state requirements. Since most states require water suppliers to have already completed an ERP, it is recommended that water suppliers update their current ERP to facilitate compliance with the AWIA. The recommended approach to update an existing ERP is to review the EPA template as well as AWIA requirements, identify any missing sections or data gaps, and update the ERP accordingly. It's possible to use information from the EPA template to update any identified data gaps. For example, the provided incident response procedures can be used as templates when making updates. Some other general tips are to incorporate findings from the risk and resiliency assessment into the ERP, to hold stakeholder outreach if possible, for example, performing tabletop exercises, and to use templates from the EPA guidance to make updating the ERP as easy and seamless as possible. CEI can help you meet AWIA requirements. CEI has highly applicable experience, having previously prepared multiple vulnerability assessments under the Safe Drinking Water Act in the early 2000s. CEI has also developed ERPs in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and most recently participated in the Massachusetts Municipal Vulnerability Program. CEI has been closely following EPA guidance relative to the AWIA over the past year, and have developed a recommended scope of work that we touched upon earlier in this webinar to help efficiently and effectively meet AWIA requirements. Finally, our staff are experts in the field. CEI staff are certified in the Utility Risk and Resiliency Program and routinely work on an array of drinking water and water resources projects. Thank you for watching this webinar. For more information on America's Water Infrastructure Act, please contact David Roman or Mike Ohl, or visit CEI's website.